Business on Purpose podcast.
Like an archer who wounds everyone is a man who hires a fool. Man, that's a sobering proverb, isn't it? Hey, it's Scott Beebe with the Business on Purpose podcast, where we deal with real issues, in the trench issues of heroic small business owners around the world who are facing what can be challenges, frustration, pitfalls, setbacks, excitement, joy, elation, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. And it's been really interesting over the past few weeks. At the time of this recording, it's getting to the end of the year. We're in quarter 4. And we're starting to see some movement happening. This is typically a time of the year, season of the year, where people get really itchy. They want to start potentially moving. The hint of the new year is coming into focus as they think about the holidays throughout the end of the physical year, the calendar year, I should say. And in thinking about the end of the calendar year, they start to think about the new year. Well, that dawns some concepts, some ideas that, well, maybe I'm not that happy here. Maybe I begin to sabotage my own work and what that looks like. And I read this proverb the other day, just in my regular reading. Like the one who wounds everyone is a man who hires a fool. I want to ask you a question. I want you to think about this in the deep recesses of your mind and in your soul. You, the small business owner, do you have a process for hiring people? So I'm going to ask it again, but I'm going to ask it in a different way. Do you really have a process for hiring people? It is crucial that in everything that we do, that we've got some level of process in doing it, because it creates incredible predictability for the people that we get to serve. So it's a very human and humane thing to do, is to create process and to follow this process. What's more inhumane is to just do things fly by the seat of your pants and very haphazard. Does that mean all of life should be processed out? No, of course not. There needs to be spontaneity. We've got some dear family friends who one of their core values is spontaneous adventure. Well, one of the reasons they value that is because there's so much process in their life. And so they want to think spontaneity in different situations that they're in. So spontaneous adventures is one of their core values. What I found more, though, in the lives of small business owners is spontaneity tends to rule the day. Instead of it being something that we've got to necessarily think about, a lot of times spontaneity becomes something that just happens as a byproduct of life. I wake up and I go about my Monday and my Tuesday and my Wednesday and my Thursday, and spontaneity, ambiguity, and chaos really drive the day. And when that happens, what ends up the product of that kind of chaos is that we begin to start firing arrows everywhere. When we fire arrows everywhere, multiple people start to take on wounds from firing arrows everywhere. And I don't want that to happen. I want for you to be in a position to where you've got a very mindful, very thought-filled process of how you go about onboarding people. Because when you hire people, you're not just bringing people in. Just ask me. I don't like having an offboarding conversation. I don't like it at all. It's not even that, none of us like those conversations. No. I will necessarily avoid the conversation. That's why when we first wrote our vision in 2015 that I put in there, I don't want W-2 employees, because I don't want to have that conversation for somebody who's depending on us for every bit of their income. And so we've just made a decision. This might change down the road as we get more information, we'll see. But for now, that's just not a part of our vision, because I realize it's a massive weakness in me. And so for many of you, you don't have that choice. You've got a lot of people that are going to be W-2 employees for you. And so you have to have it in your mindset right now that this is going to be something that you're going to have to do. So you want to hire well, so you have less of a chance of having to fire either well or poorly down the road. But I want you to think about it. When you hire haphazardly, you're like an archer wounding everybody, because you're more at risk of hiring a fool. And I don't mean a fool like a moron and things like that, but somebody who might be foolish to the actual role that you're hiring for. And you've got a responsibility to the vision, the mission, the value of your company not to do that, but to instead bring team members in who are going to be powerful additions to that vision that you've laid out. Now, of course, you've got to have written your vision out, mybusinessonpurpose.com/vision, if you want to have access to that and start to write your vision out. But after you have that written out, when you have a defined hiring process, and I may talk about that in a later podcast of what that process looks like. We've got the 7 steps to anxiety-free hiring that I know I've done a podcast on before. You can Google that and find it. But when you've got that process in play and you begin to work it, it's a very human experience at that point. You're bringing people into a predictable environment where they know what to expect so they can fly, because that's ultimately what we want them to be able to do, is to bring their asset, their value into your world and vice versa, so that you can drive on to your vision. Hey, thanks for joining me, as always, and I hope you won't wound everybody. I hope you'll have a process of hiring. We'll see you next time, right here on the Business on Purpose podcast.